Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I welcome you to English 11. Those who are sitting in front of me and those who have joined us online. I just need your attention for today's video lesson because we are going to cover a student's learning outcome from English 11. Now, this is our lecture number 5, basically, not 6. This is about skimming and scanning. Now, skimming and scanning, as you know, is part of your reading and critical thinking. My dear learners, in English, we are to deal with different competencies like vocabulary, grammar, reading and critical thinking, oral communication, and also writing. So we are done with covering SLOs from grammar and vocabulary. Now we are dealing with students' learning outcomes from reading and critical thinking, because we need to enhance our reading comprehension and understanding so that we can read something and then achieve our target of reading and our purpose of reading. So for that reason, today we will be dealing with skimming and scanning. Now let's read our students' learning outcome to see what we are supposed to do. The SLO says, apply skimming and scanning strategies for relevant information and main points in text to identify the writer's purpose and intended audience. Infer the main idea or theme of the text, distinguishing or differentiating between fact and opinion where necessary. Now, we'll address some chunks in this lesson and then we will deal with some leftover things in the later one. Now, all we need to do is apply these techniques of skimming and scanning. Those are reading strategies that we need to apply to any text according to the purpose, and also for getting the relevant information and main points to identify why did the writer write the text, the writer's purpose, the intended audience for which the writer is writing. There can be different kind of audiences. Not every text is for every kind of reader or audience. So there are some factors that you will be seeing. Now, back. Now, by inference, which means that when we are guessing something, when we are inferring to understand the meaning, the hidden meaning and the implied meaning, we use the concept, the approach of inference to get to the main point, and we also deduct our main idea or main theme of any text we are reading. Now, you know that the difference between fact and opinion. Fact is when things are proven scientifically, a thing that is proved to be correct and as it is, we call it a fact, and opinion can be different and it varies from person to person. It is subjective and cannot be proved false or right. Now, here is your vertical linkage. I hope that we have broken down our students' learning outcome carefully. Now let's see how we can achieve it. Now time to storm your brains a little bit. Before beginning the lesson, I would like you to think about it. So what is your way of getting to the main idea of any text? We know that a text has a main idea, a gist as we call it, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, and we have to get to the main idea in order to understand why this is written and what is the main point, the main lesson and main idea that we can get from the text of the lesson or from the text or any kind of text. So for that case, now back. Okay. Now when we are reading any kind of text, we need to get to the main idea. Now, how do you get to the main idea of the text? Think about it for a moment. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can pause the video and think about it, that when you are reading, say, let's say a story, how do you know the main idea of the story? Is it after that you have read everything, or do you find it in the middle of the story when you're reading? So you can come up with your answers, share with your peers and your instructor. Now, let's talk about these two strategies one by one. First, let us talk about scanning. What do we mean by the word scanning? It's coming from the word scan. It means we scan, we look for one thing that we already want to look for. So we are reading for scanning something. Scanning is searching for specific or particular information or any kind of keyword that tells you the terminology or anything, any more information in the text. So we are looking for information and specific information. So in order to do this quickly, because we need to get to the right answer, we look for the keywords, we look for particular names, dates, if you want to look for phone number, program, etc. So all for these are different purposes for why we are reading. And when we are scanning all these things, we need to get to the right answer quickly. So this is why we use this technique of scanning. It is very quick. Let's see how it works. Next. Now, we talked about scanning, which is a technique. Let's see these two together. Skimming and scanning are very rapid, means fast reading methods in which you look at a passage or any text to find specific information. These reading methods make it easier for you to grasp large amount of material, especially when you are previewing. So these strategies, these techniques are used in reading in order to get to the right thing that we are finding quickly and easily. So this is why, and the purpose of scanning and skimming, they are different. But the main thing is that by using these two techniques, we get to the right answer and we get the thing that we are looking for easily. The purposes of these two, skimming and scanning, they are different, but they serve the main purpose of looking for anything quickly. Now let's see, how do they work? Now, what is skimming? Why do we do skimming? We do skimming to read quickly and get the main idea of the text. Now, if you want to look for the main idea of any text, what will you do? You will do skimming. You will read quickly and covering everything so that you do not miss the main idea of the text. So skimming is done to get to the main idea of any text. Next, let's see how to skim. So we have to work quickly. You read the title if there is one. First, you will read the title of the text if there is one. And you read the introduction or the first paragraph if there is one available. Read the first sentence of every other paragraph. So reading the title, reading the introduction, the first sentence, the second one, or the first sentence of every paragraph of the text is very important when we are skimming, because we want to get to the main idea of the text. You will be noticing any pictures, charts or graphs that are there. Notice any italicized or bold-faced words or phrases. You read the summary or last paragraph if there is one. Just as the first paragraph is equally important, also the last paragraph is important. So following these techniques, reading the title or the subtitle, the first line of each paragraph, the last paragraph. Now if you do this, you can find the main idea quickly, and what you are doing is is skimming. You are skimming the text. Now, let's practice. You can see a picture in front of you over here. The title, Kawan Wins Freedom. Now, this is a subheading, pre-reading. Now, let's say if we want to find that when was Saheli brought from Bangladesh. Now, this is a story of an elephant that was imported from Sri Lanka probably to Pakistan, and that animal couldn't survive properly, and then they have to send it back. So it's a very good story. It is included in the book. You can read it by getting English 11. Now, if I want to look for this particular incident that happened in 2012, I'm going to read everything quickly and then just scan for the information that I'm looking for. Now, this was an example in the previous slide of scanning. If you want to look for any number, any detail, any kind of chart, any percentage or anything of that sort, you just scan everything just till that you get your desired result. Now, scanning is searching for specific information or keywords. We talked about it. Moving on. Now, why do we do scanning? We want to get what we need and as quickly as possible. You search for keywords, words that are bold, that are italicized, keywords that hold terminologies and specific kind of words that are very important. We call them keywords. You have to look for them. You move quickly over the page. So do not spend so much time on one page if you are scanning any text, and then you will be doing less reading and more searching. Now, do not stay and read the whole thing. If you are scanning any text for that specific information, you just have to move quickly and just go through one page after the other till you find your information. Now, applying all these techniques, we can say that we are scanning a specific information from the text or the document or any kind of text. Now, let's talk about the main idea. And what do we do to get to the main idea? We actually skim the whole text. We read it. Unlike scanning, where we are just not reading but only finding specific information, specific number or name or date or going through the timeline, etc. Here we are actually skimming the whole text to get to the main idea. And the main idea is what the text is mostly about. Evaluate details to determine key ideas that support the central idea. Now you have to look for these clues in the text. You will be going through the headings, the visuals, first or last sentence of that text, and words that are repeated again and again. Now, finding all these things, Now, finding all these things, you can actually get to the main idea. You will read the first paragraph, the first sentence of each paragraph, the last sentence, the keywords, repeated words, bold words, and the visuals, the headings, etc. The first or the last sentence, and also all these kind of clues you will be looking for, and then it will lead you to the main idea of the text. Now, let's talk about another thing mentioned in our students' learning outcome, which is author's purpose. Why did the author write this and what the author is trying to convey to the reader? The author's purpose is the reason why the author wrote the text and helps us recognize the author's message and read with more understanding. Now, there could be these different purposes. Let's talk about number one. It is persuasion, to persuade, to convince the readers of something. It could be anything of that sort. The author tries to persuade the reader to think or act in a certain particular way. Or the author wrote the text for the purpose of sharing information, facts, and information about a topic. Or just to entertain you. The purpose is to entertain you, to add humor, to make you laugh and think about things in a very light way. So this could also be a purpose. All these three are different purposes of any author of writing the text. So you can read the text, and then you can identify that how we can actually recognize the purpose of the author. Now, let's talk about purpose number 1. It says to persuade. Sometimes authors write to try to persuade the reader or convince the reader to do something or believe what they are writing about. For example, all these advertisements that you see, the scripts that you see on television, on social media, print media, those advertisements are basically of the purpose of persuading you into buying something or into believing something. Editorials, speeches, persuasive essays, all these are examples of texts that are written to persuade you. So this is also, as we talked about it, a purpose of the author to persuade you, to make you act in a certain way or to make you buy something. Now, what kind of language can you find in such kind of text? The emotionally charged language, use of rhetorical devices, compelling or important arguments, appeals to the audience's values of emotions. So they actually try to touch with the emotion of the audience or the reader. So you can find the language which is emotionally charged. So all these things coming together, hence the reader is actually persuaded by the author. Now, the second purpose is to inform you. Till now, if you have any kind of question about our lesson, you can ask. Okay. Now, the second purpose is to actually inform the reader. Other times, an author may write to provide information on a topic, explanations or descriptions about a subject. For example, news articles, textbooks, research papers, reports, informational essays, all these are examples of texts that are written by the author just for the purpose of giving and sharing valuable information. Now, let's look at the characteristics, just like we did with the persuasion purpose. Let's see that how does the text sounds like or read like. The text is clear and straightforward, language is used, organized, structure, use of evidence and examples. So you can find all these kind of different characteristics and traits in such writing, where you can find all these 3 or 4 things, so that you can know that the purpose of the author is to actually inform you. Next, let's talk about the purpose number 3, which is to entertain. Examples are novels, short stories, poems, films, videos, humor pieces. Now, all these are texts. First, they were in the form of script or text in order to entertain you as a reader. So, for the whole purpose of such authors is just to entertain you for the sake of entertainment. Now, the characteristics or traits of such texts are engaging narrative. The story is very engaging. It captivates you. It holds you. Your use of humor, vivid and clear descriptions, and creative language and creative style. So when you find something like this, all these things in a text, you can clearly reach to the author's purpose, which is of actually entertaining you. So we looked for all these three purposes, which which is very much mentioned in our students learning outcome. We have cleared it one by one. Now moving on, let's talk about audience, the readers who are consuming the text or the those other mediums. The base is actually the written work. So audience or readers refers to the group of people for whom the text is written or designed. The author tailors or changes their language, tone, and content based on the characteristics and expectations of the intended audience. So if the writer is writing for children, all these things will be different. If they are addressing people over 40 years of age, that whole thing, the tone, the style, the narrative will be totally different. So it depends upon the audience. Now audience can be categorized, can be grouped in many categories, and these are some examples: age, gender, culture, location, knowledge, and interest. Now all these things are different of different audience. This will help you categorize the audience into different groups and different classifications. Now, writing for audience. Let's talk about the language. How does it differ for different audiences? Authors adapt the difficulty of sentence structures and vocabulary to suit the level and knowledge of their readers. So if the readers are teenagers, people who are in their teen years, for that the language, the style, and everything will be different. And if the audience, if the readers are in the 30 age group, more than 30 or 40 or 50, the language will be, and all these things will be totally changed. Now you have to read the excerpt below and discuss with a partner who the target audience is. When you'll get this PowerPoint presentation, you can discuss it with anyone, read this and see that for whom the text is written for. You can totally understand that why the writer wrote this and for whom. What is the age group of the readers and all those different factors that we have seen. Next one is writing for audience. Now, if you answered any of these, you are correct. Now, this text was written for university students, for adults, not for children, environmentally conscious people. A scholarly article might use technical language that you can find terminologies suited for an academic audience, while a text for children uses simpler language suitable for young readers. So you can clearly see how the author actually alters his language, his style and tone for different kind of audiences. Next one we have tone. Now let's see how the tone changes for different kind of intended audiences. Now again we have this text. If you read it and then you answer the questions and they look something like this. Now this text is for primary to secondary school students. They are children or teenagers and they are for families. Now you can see informal language is used in the text, everyday casual expressions and the use of first person pronouns, first person narrative to engage such group of audience. Next one. Now let's practice. This is an extract, a selection from our book's main lessons text. You can see over here. Now you have to, if you're watching me on YouTube, you have to pause the video, read it, and in the class I will request you to read this whole paragraph, and then when you will get the PowerPoint presentation, you will read this part also, and then you can identify the purpose of the writer, the tone, the language, the writing style that is used, and all those things. and you can also reach to the main idea. Moving on, here is a simulation video that you can watch. You can access the link. It will be shared with you in Chases Academy's YouTube channel, where you will be seeing this video later on. You can go to the description and straight away click the link of this simulation video and watch that for better understanding. Now moving on, we have this classroom activity. You can get it from the book individually or in pairs. You have to read the given excerpt and identify the main ideas, writer's purpose, and intended audience. Now all these three things are mentioned in our students' learning outcome. We need to achieve it by doing practice and do it as much as we can, so that we can be fully aware of these whole techniques, and we can achieve our students' learning outcomes. Now moving on to our classroom activity, when you will be reading the text, the main text of the lesson from the book, you have to answer this question, talk about the text, talk about the language and everything that you can think of. Now, this is your worksheet. It will be shared with you. Again, you have to read this whole paragraph, this passage, and then you will be answering questions related to its main idea or main theme. Now moving on, these comprehension questions are also added, following with a conclusion that we will be doing right now at the end of our lesson. Let's conclude what we have learned so far. So we have learned the techniques of skimming and scanning. Scanning is when you're looking for a particular information, a date, a number, or anything, those specific tiny details that are hard to find. So use the technique of scanning in order to get to that desired information. And skimming is when you want to get to the main idea. And what do? We do all those things that were mentioned in the previous slides. We read the first paragraph, the first sentence of each paragraph, the last paragraph, and all those other tips that I gave you in order to be a better skimmer, in order to be someone who does the skimming technique perfectly. Now then, we identified the main idea, how we can get to the main idea of any text, and then we identify writer's purpose and also the intended audience. We saw that there are three different purposes of any author: to persuade, to entertain, and to inform. And we saw intended audience, how they are divided and categorized into different kind of groups based on factors like age, culture, location, etc., and gender as well. So at the end, you can see all these resources mentioned: your worksheet, your presentation, question bank, lesson plan, skill sheet, etc. Thank you for listening. I hope that we have clearly achieved our students' learning outcome, and now we are very much clear about it. I'll see you in the next video lesson with another SLO. Allah Hafiz.